girls. Welcome back to the Asterisk podcast, where I'm your host, April Biondolillo. And today on the show, we have a very special guest. Her name is Emily. And you know what, Emily? I meant to ask you before I hit record, how do you say your last name?
Baca. Emily Baca.
Baca. Okay,
yes.
So I was like, I could go Baca, I could go Baca. So
it's
Baca
okay.
it is. Well, Emily Baca is the discipleship pastor at New Life Church in Renton. She is an ordained pastor within the Assemblies of God and serves as one of their presbyters to support pastors in the Northeast area. She is passionate about helping those find belonging within the local church, as well as igniting spiritual fervor. She loves leadership, building teams, creating spaces for biblical community, and preaching. Emily is the wife to Kanan Baca and 2 kids under 2. Amazing. Brave and Josiah. Emily, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's so good to be here with you.
Yes, so fun. I am so excited for our conversation. Emily and I got to hop on a call just a few days ago, actually, and just kind of talk through life, figuring out where does the Lord want to lead us in this conversation. And I am so excited, girls. This is going to be such a good episode. So we got to talking and the Lord is going to lead this so well. So I'm going to just jump on in so you guys can be blessed to hear more of Emily's story. So Emily, can you share with us your journey of faith and how you came to know the Lord?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a pastor's home. My parents started a church when I was 3 in a movie theater in Northern California. And it was so fun. I was telling April, what's better than like coming out of church and smelling popcorn and getting a Slurpee? Like, come on, at the age of 3. So that was such a joy. We had like a church offices in our home. We had kids camp in our backyard. My kids pastor made it an incredible experience. So shout out to kids pastors everywhere.
Yes.
Because it was because of her that truly whenever they had an altar call, I was up there. I just always gave my life over to the Lord because I thought that's what you're supposed to do.
Yes.
So I never had I don't honestly remember one key moment where it was like, that's when I followed Jesus.
Yeah.
Like I just, honestly, I have followed him my whole life and I have never stepped away. And because of that, I went to public school, and because I loved my church home and what God did within the walls of the church, I wanted everybody to experience it. And so it was like a natural thing for me to be like, let's go. Like, you need to come to my dad's church. Like, if I could just get you into the doors of the church, then you'll experience Jesus. And from there, just continued on and went to youth ministry, grew up in the youth ministry, and my parents, their church continued to grow and multiple. And they eventually started a church in Mexico. And that's kind of where my call into ministry even began.
That's so awesome. I love that. I just love hearing the stories of growing up in the church, and you can hear horror stories sometimes of people rebelling or just feeling like it's forced upon you. And so to hear the stories like yours where you fell in love with it and it was this beautiful example from a young age, I just think that's so encouraging, especially because me and my husband, we're in full-time ministry together, and sometimes those are the fears that the enemy can try to place, of, I don't want my kid to not enjoy this, but I just love that story of faithfulness in it. So as a pastor's kid, what lessons did you learn about faith and community?
Yeah, I would say, especially I didn't have family other than my intermediate family around us. All of my family lived out of state. And so being involved in a community, faith community, I felt like my church was that. And so I had a bunch of grandmas and grandpas and aunties and uncles. And it was one of those things where rather than me being, I guess, shy and wanting just to cling on to my parents, it could be a personality thing too, but I just really jumped into that's grandma so-and-so and that's auntie so-and-so. And it was just really cool to be able to be adopted really by church community. Yeah. And my parents really, obviously they had to trust who we would spend time with, say if they had to go away and whatnot, but to be able to be raised, not just by my parents who were great people, but some solid foundational, core believers, pouring into my life was so huge. And so that affected me so much where
Yeah.
like I want to be able to do that now to different young kids or youth or whatever, because I know how valuable it is to have like a church family pour and invest in you.
Yeah, no, I think that's so huge. What pieces, I mean, you're serving, I know we're going to jump around a little bit.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
serving now full time in the local church and a lot of dealing with faith and community. What like passion like has stirred up within you? Like what is the Lord doing now and like why community is so important? You know, we've gone through so much in our culture of being isolated when the pandemic came through and you know, we got comfortable with like online platforms or watching church online. And so we see a lot of, you know, I think of the audience listening right now may have this idea of like, I don't have to go to church to, you know, have the presence of God or to experience him. Like, what would you speak into that realm or to that person that may be wrestling with those things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, Jesus, he loves the church and he wanted us to build the church. And within that, like, because the church is made up of people. And so, yes, it's so good to have like a individual relationship with the Lord, but man, like I need people to spur me on, especially like when the going gets tough. And if I'm like, man, I'm at my wit's end, like literally like a month ago, I was like, I felt just really tired and exhausted, but I had people that were checking in on me, like, how you doing? Like, how can I help? Like, I lead a group, and it's, you know, I was expecting to have, childcare in the evening. And it was an online group. So it was great because I was like, okay, I could do this from my home and I'll put my kids to bed. But I was expecting to have help still. But my childcare was my mother-in-law and she got in a car accident. So she was no longer able to be my childcare.
Right.
Anyway, so being able to, I have to like rush to put them to bed. Hopefully they're asleep and start this. In multiple weeks, there's been times where it just doesn't, I'm not able to like really just get it going. But to have a community that's like, oh, we got this. We're going to pick it up so we can continue to go deep into the word, study the scripture together. Because these women they want to know God's word and they don't really know how to dig deeper and to find these different we're studying biblical principles of like leadership in the Bible. And so they're like, how do I find this? Where do I go? And so like they're waiting. And I'm like, man, I can't do this alone. I'm so grateful that I have other people that will hold my arms up. And we need other people to hold our arms up. And so that's one reason. I mean, so not only can we have people come alongside us to help us, but people to even like hold us accountable. Say if you're struggling with different things that, you are trying to submit unto the Lord, to have somebody check in on you and like you be vulnerable enough to share like those struggles. Like you're not supposed to carry that and have this shame. No, like, let's like be honest and transparent and know like, we all struggle and fall short, but like we want to walk in obedience. And in order to, I guess, like, press on and walk in that obedience, it's good to have people check in to make sure you're doing okay in that area.
No, that's so huge. So many great pieces to hit on of why we need people. And it's kind of like that call, all these commands that you look at from Jesus, it's, you know, confess your sins to one another, you know, like lean on one another, carry each other's burdens. So it's these commands that can't be done as an individual. Like you have to have your people. And so I think it's so important, just that accountability, that help me out here, guys. I'm struggling. But if you're not taking the time to invest into that, then you're going to be walking alone, which is exactly what the enemy wants. So I think it's so huge to hit on that important piece of community. Well, earlier you kind of talked about this transition of when your parents started a church in Mexico, and I would love to hear where that ministry and calling came about. So can you just share with us what was going on with that church plant in Mexico and how did that play a part in discovering like your call into ministry?
Yeah. So I was a sophomore in high school when they planted that church, and my sisters were already moved out. And so they were like, you know what, like, why don't you just come with us? And so they went down once a month to check in on the missionaries, make sure they were doing okay. The church was modeled after my parents' church, like the DNA, the vision was all the same. obviously in the Spanish language, like, but and it was really sweet. Like my dad would give the pastor his old messages and he would like preach from those, like sermon series. Like it was really cool. But during that time and going down frequently, like once a month, I was like, oh, like I never really saw church start from the ground up. Like I didn't remember as a kid. And so seeing what's like to team build and just service plan, and then also just being in worship and singing these songs that I recognize, but in a completely different language.
Yeah.
And it was a picture of heaven to me. I was like, wow, I want to, like, I don't want to just be in the church. Like I want to be a part of like seeing all this happen, like every day. And so, I didn't know if it was going to be a call into like, doing missions or like the local church in the States. But all I knew is I wanted to do something in regards to ministry. And so when I went to Northwest, the university that I went to, when I was 18, I was like, okay, I'm going to do both. I'll study pastoral ministries and then intercultural studies, which is like a missions degree. And we'll see what happens. And so that was kind of like my option, like what I was the whole time I was in school, like, am I going to go back to Mexico? Am I going to do ministry in the States? And so God just continued to just put one foot in front of the other and finish out what I have right here, and I'll work out the rest. And so, that's kind of like the call to ministry. And then it just keeps evolving.
I love that too, because I think a lot of times when you're called into something, people can assume, or I assumed even with my calling, like, okay, God's going to lay out every single detail. Like I'm going to know specifically, but it is just that moment of, man, I'm feeling drawn to something. The Lord's placing this on my heart and I have no idea what comes next or what direction. And you're just like, okay, we're just going to, like, very similar to me. I was like, okay, I'm going to go to a Christian college. I'm going to, study ministry and leadership. And there were so many questions I had in that. I'm like, what does that look like for me to be a part of the church? And where do I fit? And God, where are you leading me? And what do you do when you have like all these different passions and desires and trying to navigate like the direction and next steps? So there's so many transitions, so many like moments of confusion and excitement. So kind of share some challenges you faced when trying to figure out your career path in ministry. Is it missions? Is it being a part of a local church? What do I study? What's next? All of the fun questions.
All the fun questions. Yes. I would say the biggest challenge, or one of the big challenges that I had was towards the end of my college career. And I finished my undergrad. And so I was like, they opened up a 5-year program where you can start your master's while you're doing your undergrad. Get it done quicker, it's cheaper, all that. Like, sweet, that's me.
Sign me up.
Sign me up. And so that's what I did. And at the time I was dating my now husband, and I had like a year left, and I'm like, okay, do I go to Mexico, or there's a church plant in San Francisco that I was, had interned for as well. Yeah. And it was hard. Like I felt like I was so just torn. I'm like, God, what do you want from me? Yeah. And if I stay here, like, am I staying here just for a guy? Like, I feel like it's not like, that's not an acceptable reason to give my parents.
Yeah.
And then I like applied for a job that was on campus that would give me like free housing, and I didn't get it. So I was like, all right, that's a sign I'm not supposed to do it. I'm just going to break up with my boyfriend. Literally the worst. I'm the worst. I broke up with him like the week of finals week, like his finals week, not mine. We broke up with him the week of finals week. And then I was like, okay, now I went to Israel because it was one of our classes. And I'm like, and now I'm leaving the country.
You're like, bye.
Bye.
Wow.
And realized, well, honestly, my dad told me not to do that. And I did exactly that because I fed into emotions. Like I was overwhelmed. And so I was like, I'm just going to make a decision that I feel is right. And so did that, and realized it was totally wrong. But through that, like eventually my now husband and I got back together, like literally like 2 weeks later. He made me work for it though. Let's be honest. I was not kind by breaking up the week of finals week.
Yes.
And it was through that, that I was like, all right, well, I just need a job. Okay. So, I'm going to stay in Washington, finish school, switch churches to like my current church that I'm on staff. And just hope and pray that something happens. And, but nothing happened. Like I was working at a restaurant, I was working at a gym, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just graduated with my undergrad and my master's, and like fast forward, and now I'm married, and I'm not doing ministry.
Wow.
Like I'm not vocationally. Let me rephrase that. I'm not vocationally doing ministry. And I was upset, and so upset because I'm like, well, I just went to school for this for the last 5 years, and now I'm like a licensed pastor. Like, hello, notice me. And I expected to get something. And honestly, April, I'm so glad that I didn't.
Wow.
Because I needed just to serve the local church that I was just started attending. Like they didn't know who I was. Like they're like, oh, cool. Like, great. You went to school. Great. You're within like the Assemblies of God. But like, who are you?
Wow.
Like, are you here to like serve the church? And I now look back and I'm so grateful that I wasn't given a handout. Like I now sit in the job that I do because I worked for it.
Yeah.
And I didn't just like say like, oh yeah, I showed up and here you go. You know, part-time and a little bit more part-time. And then eventually I came full-time. It wasn't something where like I was handed this full-time job because my husband was on staff. No, like I had to work for it. And I'm so grateful now looking back. And in the moment, I wasn't, because I had people asking me, even random people like at restaurants, like, oh, what'd you go to school for? Oh, why are you working here at a restaurant? And I'm like, oh, thanks for rubbing it in my face.
Like, I don't know either. No, that is such a real challenge and struggle of, we have this idea of like what a trajectory is going to look like. You know, you graduate, and I remember the reality of when I went to start applying for jobs, that a lot of the like prerequisites I came across were you had to be married, or you needed to be male sometimes, or have 2+ years of experience. And it was so challenging in the midst of that, because you start to question, for me, like it was, man, why isn't this happening? And God, I just spent, 4 years. I got my degree. Like, this is what you've called me to. And just trusting the Lord in that. I ended up doing a 6-month internship at a church after that in Snoqualmie, Washington. And it was in that time that afterwards I got hired on. And what I learned the most was, as you serve someone else's vision, God will give you yours. And that's exactly what he was doing. And it is like, I love that you hit at serving the local church first, like not just coming on a stranger. And sometimes that does happen, but typically in your getting going, it's you have to learn how to serve and, be that follower, be a part of what they're doing to be the best leader. And so that's really awesome. And so now you work in full-time ministry at the same church as your husband. He's full-time there as well. What is that dynamic like? Did you think that would be challenging? Were you excited for it? Did you know that that was something you guys would want to step into together? I have all the questions.
All the questions.
Yes.
Well, we share an office, so that's fun.
Same. My husband and I do that too.
That's awesome.
It's so funny.
We are the only staff members that are married that share an office, that are like married. So I feel so blessed. But honestly, Kanan's really not in the office that much because he's on campus a lot. Our offices are off-site.
Gotcha.
So yeah, our departments, because I'm over discipleship and he's over worship, they run in their different lanes.
Yeah.
And so we don't really like plan things together or anything like that. We barely ride together. I mean, I've tried to in this last season because it's so much easier with the kids.
Yeah.
It's like he has to get there earlier because of worship rehearsal. And so, so I love it. I always wanted to do ministry alongside my spouse.
Yeah.
one day I'd love to senior pastor, whether that's like, Kanan and I talked about this, but whether it's like with Kanan or if he's doing worship, cool. Like I think it'd be cool to do it together, but no matter what, like doing ministry together, however that looks, however we lead, it's just really cool that God's wired us in these like different ways, but also they work alongside one another really well. So it's been great.
No, I love that. And it's so encouraging when you get to see married couples doing ministry together in whatever sense. Because I think one of my fears I had for a long time as a female in leadership and being ordained pastor was like, what if I find a guy that like is very not okay with that, or is maybe not so much like intimidated is the word I'm looking for, but just there's a struggle or there's this rivalry or competition that starts to exist, you know, of you stay over here, this is where, you know, kind of like this placement of things. And I do believe that there are things of order, you know, for sure. But when Andrew and I met, it was just so encouraging to see. He left his church that he was at first and came and just served under my leadership as a youth pastor and got on board and has been my biggest cheerleader, biggest champion. But even, you know, now I get to be that for him and doing that together. And so it's really fun to find that rhythm. Yes. But I know that there can be a lot of girls that have that same desire of, man, I feel called to ministry. And I also have a desire for my future spouse to desire to do ministry with me, you know, and not always knowing like what that's going to look like. But for you and Kanan, like when you were dating, did you guys have like conversations about that? Like, how did you know that Kanan was someone that you were to marry? How did you know, like, what is ministry going to look like together? What was that process? Because you guys met when you were in college, correct?
Yeah. So we met on my way out. So he transferred in and I was about to graduate. And man, I think like what initially I'm like, okay, not only does he love Jesus, but he was like very like he was deep in his faith. And yeah, he knew I wanted to do ministry. We both were from the same like background. Like we both grew up in the AG. I'm not sure if like people are familiar with that, but it's a denomination. And because of that, like we both have seen women in ministry. That was just kind of like, that was just part of our tradition. And so it's not nothing that we've ever either of us questioned or felt like intimidated by. But you know, like I mentioned before, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do missions and like be overseas. And so he definitely said, hey, I don't feel called to missions. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
That's real.
And so, you know, that was just like through prayer. And also like, you know, I didn't have like, I didn't have it all figured out. And so I was just going to put one foot in front of the other. And then I knew God would figure the rest out. But we both knew that one day we'd want to like lead a church. But like, it's so interesting because when we both had those conversations initially, well, he was like 20, 21 at the time. I was like 24 at the time. Like Kanan was just getting into music, like back at like, no, he's always been into music, but really deciding like, no, this is what I'm supposed to be doing now. Worship. Where before he's like, where do I want to get? Where do I want to land? And so it's just interesting how it's evolved. And so, not like we haven't ever pigeonholed ourselves, I guess. Like we were just like, all right, like this feels like an obedient step and, championing like him and he'd do the same for me with whatever step we take has been really, really cool. Like he's never been like, oh, you know, I don't think that's a good idea unless it's like of the Lord kind of thing. So we've just been really open with like our dreams, our desires, what we feel like the Lord's been impressing on us. But yeah, right off the bat, because of our tradition that we grew up in, like we both were okay with like women doing ministry. All right, cool. Well, what that can mean a lot of things. What do you want to do? I'm like, okay, well, there's a variety of things I'm interested in. And so I think like it's oftentimes we see like a pathway, like, oh, like I'm going to be like a lot of times like youth pastors are like, okay, I'm going to start doing youth pastoring and then I'm going to be an associate pastor, then a camp pastor, then a senior pastor. Where like God is so big and so vast. Like they were putting God in a box when we look at it that way. And so like for me, my role has been like so many variety of things before I ended up here. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that it's been that way because it just shows like the complexity of God. And I think we just have to stay like so like humble and just be like, all right, God, whatever you want. And like your spouse should be okay with that too.
Yeah.
And I'm blessed that he has been and has cheered me on through the whole process.
No, that's so good. Just kind of coming with it all like open-handed of Lord, wherever you want us, we're ready, we'll go.
Yeah.
And it brings so much peace. Like it's scary to do that, this idea of surrender and being open, because we kind of come with our own personal agendas or ideas that are really good. You know, like you're like, this is a good idea, but it's not. Good isn't always God. And so it's just allowing it like, okay, God, this is what I'd like, but it's not about what I'd like. What do you have for my life, you know?
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to girls who feel overwhelmed by the pressure of making the right choices in their faith and careers?
Yeah. Man, I remember so many mornings. I'm a morning person. So if you're a night person,
same.
Like it's okay. Oh, but cool. You're a white person.
Yeah, I love it.
So many mornings where our university was close to the water. And so I'd like run down to the water and I'd just sit and be like, Lord, I'll go wherever you want me to go. Where is that? I'll marry whoever you want me to marry. Who is it? And like, you know, I would never really often get an answer, but I would leave those moments where I was like, I have a lot of peace because I just gave all these like questions over that it had been mulling over in my mind. I just kind of gave it up to God. I was like, all right, here you go. Yeah. And, you know, the moments that I didn't do that, like when I wouldn't go down to the water, like for me, like posture and place means a lot. And so what I sometimes just need to get away and like have a posture of just like sitting and the scenery helps. But so if I didn't like go and get away and I just kind of let these like thoughts of like what's next, who, what, where, whatever, man, I would just spiral into a dark place. And so for those of you that like allow your thoughts to kind of spiral, man, the Bible says to take your every thought captive. And I believe that because the enemy comes around and he wants to take you down and he wants to confuse you. And so when you stop that spiraling and just like, all right, God, here it is. Man, the peace of God, it just consumes you. And I would also say, don't look at like trying to figure out 20 feet ahead of you. Like you want to have, you know, the house, the picket fence, the kid, da, 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 da. Just look at this next step. What is that next step that you need to take? Either graduating, all right, graduate, you know? Like for me, I had to make a paycheck. Like, so if I wasn't going to hire it at a church, I need a job. So there's a lot of places hiring. Starbucks is hiring. You could be a nanny, you know, like I knew I was called to the local church. And so I'll serve the local church and I'll work at a restaurant because like I knew that that's what I was supposed to do. And so take that next obedient step where you know God wants you to be, and he'll unpack the rest.
So good. I love that idea of just, you know, doing what you know to do. Like so many times when we're like overwhelmed with, I don't know what to do, or I don't know what's next, it's just do what you do know what to do. And, you know, if that's, you know, getting a job, it doesn't have to be the job, just a job to get a paycheck, or, you know, being faithful with the things that are right there in front of you, not getting overwhelmed with 1,000 steps. And it's difficult because it's when you're getting to the edge of finishing something, it's your normal human being to immediately go to like, well, what's the next thing I'm stepping into? And there can feel like a lot of pressure around that too. Especially with college, like you're paying in all this money. So you're like, okay, this better pay off to something because I'm going to have to start student loans, you know, soon.
Yes.
But the Lord is so good and kind and he knows all of those things. And so just what you're saying of be faithful with what's right in front of you, do what you know what to do, and the Lord will take care of the other pieces. I love that. What encouragement would you offer to girls struggling with indecision about relationships, their future, especially in faith contexts?
Man, God is sovereign. And so like, he is so good. So I think, oftentimes we're like, man, what if I break up with the person. And it's like, that was him. That was like, that's the person God had for me. God's so good. Like, no, like he knows the desires of your heart. There's somebody else out there for you. I think sometimes we get so caught up in like, it's just that one person. I don't believe there's just like that one person.
Same. Yeah.
The one. The same cloth. Yeah.
Like, what's the one? Yes.
Yeah. And so just like breathe, honestly, like give yourself like a little bit of like, stop making it so complicated and like, all right, like there's like, they don't check every box off my list I made when I was in high school, like that, like, like stop being so uptight, I guess. And just like at the end of the day, oftentimes I feel like, at least when I was in college, I wanted so many other people's faith, their opinion, and I really cared deeply about what they thought, because I'm like, oh, they're a person of faith. I really trust them. Like, what do you think? And I was so indecisive, and so my judgment was clouded because I was asking so many people about what they thought I should do, rather than going to Jesus and just submitting it to him. And when I went away, and I mean, it sounds so bougie, like when I went away to Israel, but it's really when I went away, like, and I shut out all the noise. I'm like, what is it that you want for me, God? That's when I realized, like, oh, I'm just overcomplicating it. It is Canaan. Like you can choose Canaan, and it's going to be really good. And that's who I have. But like, if you choose Canaan, it means you're going to need to stay in Washington, and you're going to need to switch churches and X, Y, and Z, because we both were attending different churches and whatnot. And so, like, there's a domino effect to every decision that you make. But like at the end of the day, you need to stop listening to all this noise that's clouding your judgment, and just listen and submit to the Holy Spirit. And so that's what I would say. If you don't know the voice of God, get in the Word, and then listen after you read it. Because I think it's really easy, at least for me. I like to read, check things off my list. But sitting is really hard.
So true. Like, I'll yap for a long time, and the Lord's like, are you gonna like stop and listen?
Right.
Like, you're right. That's good.
Yeah.
No, I was laughing even with like the list. I remember when I made my list of who my future like husband would be, which I think there's some good things to take away in that. Sometimes we get a little silly and go overboard. But I was looking back through journals one time when I went home to visit my family in Texas, and I found this journal entry, and it had my list of all of the things. And one of the things I'd written down is that the person I marry can't have any tattoos, which I laughed because my husband's covered in tattoos. So I was like, oh no, I let my little younger self down, but I was laughing so much at that. But and I love just the idea of, I was also someone that would go to literally everyone to tell me, what am I supposed to do? What decision? And I think that's just like sometimes our natural tendency of, we just want like this immediate answer. And so we think talking with the person, they're going to give me that immediate response. And I think when you find people in your life that will make the effort just to point you back to the Lord of like, well, what is Jesus saying when you're talking with them? You're like, I haven't talked to him. That's a good reminder, And it does, because we start inviting all of these voices and we get overwhelmed, we need people that are going to echo the voice of the Lord. And sometimes people mean well, they give good intentions with their thoughts, and it's good advice, but sometimes the things that the Lord calls us to doesn't always make sense. Sometimes can seem outside of the box. And I love that there's options sometimes too that the Lord gives us. Like, you can choose Canaan or you cannot choose Canaan. For me, it was, I'd moved back to Texas, and it was like, do I go to Washington? Is that where I'm supposed to be? Or am I supposed to stay in Texas? And the Lord just made it so clear of like, you can choose either one, and I will bless either one. But he made it clear to me. I remember when I was interviewing in Washington, like after my internship. So there was like a period where I ended the internship. It had come to an end. They offered me a job. I said no, because I was dating someone else at the time. And I was like, followed the boy instead of the opportunity. It's like, there will be a ton of other church opportunities.
Yeah.
I came back to Texas and there was none. I was working at an insurance company, living with my parents. My relationship ended. Everything was so dramatic and tough, but it really was.
Yeah.
Looking in that season, I remember I called the church back up and I was like, hey, remember that time you guys offered me a job? Like, any chance you want to do that again? And so they flew me out and they had some really hard questions to ask, kind of similar to probably Kanan being like, you broke up with me, so let's work for it. So they were asking some really questions of, hey, like, you said no, like, why are you here? What are you about? And I remember being at a youth group service and I was giving the message, but I was just in the time of worship, I was just praying. I was like, Lord, I need you to make this clear to me. And sometimes we ask for clarity and the Lord doesn't want to give clarity. It's just like, take a step out. Like, do you trust me or not? And I remember the Lord was so kind. He gave me this vision of me walking on water, like something super impossible. And he's like, if you say yes to Washington, you're going to see impossible things take place in your life. Because I had been someone who struggled for so long with codependency, like whatever someone else is doing, I'm going to jump on board. I needed like people's attention, affirmation. And it's like, I'm going to do things in you. I'm going to help you discover your own voice. It's going to be amazing. But he told me to look around. And as I'm like walking on water, looking around, there's not a lot of people with me. It's like, it's going to be a lonely season because you're just going to be with me. And it was so kind of him to reveal that. And yet there was such a comfort in the fact of like, but that's exactly where I'm supposed to be, because I was surrounded by people at home, but yet I felt so out of place of what I knew the Lord was calling me to do. And so I just think sometimes too, it's that reminder of the Lord's going to call us to things that will be hard and be scary. And there will always be that unknown of, he can speak it, but it doesn't mean that it's just going to like fall into place, you know, right away. There will be a process of walking that through. So I love that you're pointing back to just get in the word, know his voice, because he will guide you so well. But Emily, this has been such a good episode. I love just the topic of indecisiveness, especially in the church as Christians. We just struggle. We want, and I think our hearts really are like, we want to follow the Lord. We want to follow him well. We want to please him. But like you said, throughout, like sometimes we overcomplicate it and we get in the way of, it's not this crazy difficult thing. Just follow him one step at a time and he will lead us through. So thank you for sharing just such wisdom through difficult decisions of where the Lord's leading you. And we are cheering you on with the Cherish community of just all the things that you're doing. And we'll be linking your social media accounts in the show notes so people can follow and see what you're about in your life, which I think your life is so fun and so cute. I love seeing your little ones on Instagram. They're adorable. Thank you so much for being on the episode today. And girls, if you enjoyed this episode, which how could you not, make sure to share in your circle with your friends. Make sure you are following, you're subscribed, and we cannot wait to see you back here again soon.